Ingalandia. Approving you now. Hey guys.
Hey everyone, good morning.
Good morning.
So Arigato, where are you currently based right now?
I'm in Italy right now at the moment.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
like in the afternoon for me. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Very fancy.
Sorry?
Very fancy.
Yeah. I mean, it's very like nice right outside of where I'm living right now, so I don't want to make you guys jealous.
Okay.
Yeah.
It beats Brussels, I'm sure.
It would definitely. I hate Brussels. I'm sorry. I hope there's nobody from Brussels.
Yeah, I'm there with you
The
after
weather
my
was
first
really
experience.
horrible. Yeah. Even though I didn't really go to East CC, but I definitely see the weather. I see my friends sending me pictures of the helling, and it was like in the middle of July. It's so random, right? The weather.
Yeah,
Awesome.
cool.
Well, I just
Yeah,
want to thank all the speakers for coming today. Um, Jonathan, do you want to do you want everyone to introduce themselves and I can ask the questions or?
yeah. Let's do that. And for context and for people listening, this is our monthly ecosystem AMA, and Alex recruited some really great speakers on the panel here, and we're going to share some alpha about what's coming in the Zeta Chain ecosystem, and then we can take your questions towards the end. So yeah, thank you to the speakers, and let's do some intros, and Alex, you can take it away.
Sure. Well, hi everyone. My name is Alex. BD here at Zeta Chain. Yeah, very excited to be here. Previous to this, I've been in crypto for about 8 years now. I started off in the gaming side of things when I used to play CS:GO and Dota and League of Legends and all these games, and I used to make random friends through Skype. And one of them introduced me to ETH. So it all just started there for me, and now I have a more professional career in Web3 now. BitSmiley, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So this is Ari, and then I'm mainly in charge of the marketing and then community building side of the uh, team. So I'm pretty much like in the community, and then I believe that if you know BitSmiley long enough, then you probably know me already. And I've been with the team since like day one, pretty much, and I've really enjoyed my experience with BitSmiley. And working with the team is a great experience for myself. And I used to be like in marketing as well, but in like more Web 2 side. I used to work in advertisement companies, and that's how I kind of got into marketing, but in Web 3 now. So this is me.
Awesome. Sovereign?
Hey there, this is Ingalandia, or Ingamar, head of ecosystem growth at sovereign.com, sovryn.com. I've been in the Web3 space for about 6 years now with a digital marketing background. My first foray was this little startup in 2018 called Celsius Network. Was there throughout that year. Um, and my learnings there have heavily inspired me to explore DAOs and decentralized finance, the kind that's non-custodial and permissionless and fully on chain. So I've been with Sovereign since 2020, now in charge of business development, partnerships, integrations, all the good stuff. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I guess just to start off, BitSmiley, you can start off first. What is BitSmiley for the users here who don't know what BitSmiley is? And what are just some of the things that you're currently doing right now?
Yeah, sure. So Big Smiley is a Bitcoin native over collateralized stablecoin protocol. So like basically you can over collateralize your Bitcoin, and then you can mint BitUSD, which is our stablecoin, and then you can use it in other layer twos for some, like other use cases, instead of just making your Bitcoin sit there, because as we know that there's not much um, real transaction scenarios for Bitcoin currently on the main chain, right? So that's how we were born, pretty much. Like, and then users holding like Bitcoin, they can generate more potential profits by using our protocol. That's pretty much what Bitmiley is. And each BitUSD is actually backed by Bitcoin, so ensuring its value stability and then user asset security through a more comprehensive liquidation and repayment system. And what we're currently doing now is that in this year of Q3 and Q4, we will primarily focus on omni-chain initiatives. And then the main goals are trying to like deposit native Bitcoin with inscriptions, and then also bridge integrations, and then mint BitUSD to other layer ones and layer twos. That's pretty much what we're gonna focus on for the rest of the year. Yeah.
Awesome. Same question goes for you, Sovereign.
Could you repeat the question one more time, please? Sorry.
Yeah, so pretty much what is Sovereign for the users and listeners who are just listening on here right now? And can you just share what Sovereign does?
Sure. Sure. So Sovereign is the all-in-one Bitcoin DeFi experience for that Bitcoiner that wants to trade Bitcoin, or maybe lend it and earn interest, or maybe provide liquidity, or leverage, or even mint Bitcoin-backed stablecoins, all in one place. And we've provided that experience for several years now, and it actually was the leading Bitcoin DEX in terms of TVL before Merlin Chain and all these layer twos came about. But we're still hovering at close to 100 million in TVL, and we've been championing Bitcoin DeFi years before it became so cool as it is now. So that's more or less the one-liner.
Awesome. Well, I feel like our listeners know what Zeta Chain is, but just to summarize things up, Zeta Chain is an omni-chain blockchain. So what that means is you can just launch one smart contract on Zeta Chain and it's immediately live on all the connected chains that we're on. Some of the use cases for Zeta Chain is actually native swapping. So actually on any finance, you can connect your Bitcoin wallet and natively and bridgelessly swap your native Bitcoin over to EVM gas assets and even Zeta without any bridging, completely native, and quite quick as well. So that's what Zeta Chain does. And we just have a couple more announcements for the future as well on what our roadmap is and the new chain integrations as well. But I feel like that's a really great way to introduce all of us, and it feels like all this is pretty Bitcoin focused. So just to go on to the next point that I wanted to mention is I feel like both of you have mentioned Bitcoin L2s, and Sovereign in particular. You were one of, from what I remember, you were one of the first Bitcoin L2 projects on Rootstock that that happened before all this Bitcoin L2 hype. So could you talk about what Bitcoin L2s are and exactly what it's meant to do?
Yeah, sure. So Bitcoin L2s, functionally right now, they're more like side chains where you can basically mount your Bitcoin to another execution layer that has a more scalable environment for applications such as DEXs, for example. And typically they enable faster transactions, lower gas fees, and more programmability for Bitcoin. So for those who want to use DeFi on Bitcoin, typically you'll have to use a Bitcoin L2 such as Rootstock.
Nice. So Bitsmiley, what about you as well? So it seems like with Bitsmiley, your narrative is becoming a native Bitcoin-backed stablecoin that can be used across different Bitcoin L2s right now. So I feel like from your perspective, how is that going? And to your team as well, how do you define Bitcoin L2s right now?
Yeah, so basically we actually think that Bitcoin like mainnet is really lack of like real transaction scenarios. So that's why like at the moment we're really building on Bitcoin layer twos because we believe that there are actually more use case scenarios than the Bitcoin mainnet. So I think Bitcoin layer twos are like protocols built on Bitcoin blockchain to improve actually the scalability by offering improved transaction efficiencies by processing like transactions off the main chain and then reducing congestion and fees. Of course, that I for my personal experience, right? Like I think Bitcoin layer twos are not as very developed at the moment. It's not as easy to use as other kind of layer twos, but I believe there's definitely more space for the improvement, and I still believe that once we can make it more kind of smooth for everybody use, I think there will be definitely way more use cases for Bitcoin layer twos to happen in the future, I think. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so it seems like a, there's a couple things here, right? So in general, for the Bitcoin L2 space, I feel like over the past couple of months, there's been a couple L2s that have done a really great job of marketing themselves. But now we're starting to see a lot of criticism against Bitcoin L2s, right? Some of them saying that, on the pro side of things, that this is what's needed to bring in smart contract functionality. To Bitcoin and being able to find different ways to settle in Bitcoin. We're seeing so many Bitcoin L2 try to tackle these problems with different solutions. And on the other hand, now we're seeing a lot of criticism where it's Bitcoin inherently does not have smart contract functionality. So L2s will never function the same as ETH L2s just because ETH natively has smart contract functionality. So with that being said, for both of your projects, what more do you think needs to be done to innovate in the Bitcoin L2 space right now? How do you remain competitive versus all these other projects and L2s that are happening?
I think these Bitcoin L2s they deserve all this criticism. These are good questions to ask. But someone's gotta take the first step, and they're gonna get hit with questions like, how Bitcoin secured is it really? Are the transactions settling on Bitcoin? Where does the Bitcoin sit between when it goes from layer one to layer two? I think that is a hard question, to really address in a way that makes big whale hodlers comfortable, miners comfortable. They barely even touch Bitcoin DeFi on layer twos, if at all. That might change for sure, quicker than we might think, but it is always a non-zero risk when you're sending your Bitcoin to a multi-sig and then you're using a representation of it on another less secure layer. So it's just part of scaling Bitcoin. You're taking steps to increase the programmability of Bitcoin and what's possible with Bitcoin beyond just hodling and sending, because Bitcoin has such deep liquidity that is untapped, right? It's like 99%. And there's a lot of us, I think, that would love a world where we could effectively hodl Bitcoin, where it's still in our custody, but we're putting it to work, where we're just waking up with more Bitcoin every morning. I think that is a world that we all want to see and what we're working towards. But, until then, as we innovate towards that, the user does incur some custodial risk and security risk. So that's just part of the process of innovating as carefully as we possibly can.
That's a really good answer. Yeah, I've been reading through all this research and all these threads about the initial hype of Bitcoin L2s versus now. I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing that we saw with Runes a while ago, where it was like the Sydney Sweeney and Caroline, forgot her name, the ex Alameda girl. But yeah, I think that's still one question that we're inherently all solving, right? Is at the end of the day, is the security behind it and the liquidity of this native Bitcoin. It just seems like we still have a lot of ways to go, right, to continue to innovate in the space. It takes time, so we'll just see where this goes. But curious to hear your thoughts, BitSmiley, and where all this is going. I feel like, especially with the BitUSD being backed by native Bitcoin, how is that all going for you on the L2s, and what other innovation currently needs to be done to really realize the use case of something like BitSmiley?
I actually like totally agree with what you guys just said. Like, especially, it was really highly expected to be something like great. So I guess we would definitely see like a lot of obstacles like on the way. So I think right now what happens like with the criticism and everything is it's really normal. I definitely don't think that we should give up on like Bitcoin layer twos because if we want to see like more great improvements, we will definitely need to like see through the whole process, right? Because I don't believe that we can go through this process without any difficulties in order to like make Bitcoin layer twos really great for everybody to use. And I think like the biggest issue with Bitcoin layer twos currently is still the lack of real transaction scenarios, like I've mentioned like a couple times before. And I believe you guys can kind of feel that, right? As well, when you're using Bitcoin layer twos, you can definitely see that like there's not much um, like transaction scenarios for us. Like it doesn't drive or motivate any users to actually use Bitcoin layer twos. And at the moment, most of the users, I think they are driven by the short-term incentives. Like they want to get airdrops and rewards, so that's why they're trying to use Bitcoin layer twos. And I don't believe that's really sustainable. I think what we can do at the moment is that we should like enhance the long-term use cases, like maybe introducing and promoting native assets, um, so that we can motivate users to make more transactions with the platform, and also like supporting layer one assets. But at the moment, we don't see that many Bitcoin layer twos that they will actually support layer one assets. So I feel like there's still way more things that we could do to improve Bitcoin liquidity and things like that. Yeah, and then we should like develop more practical application scenarios, like such as like DeFi, DEX, and smart contract applications. So that way we could also attract users to maybe try to stick with Bitcoin layer twos instead of just to get the rewards and then they kind of just leave Bitcoin layer twos. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and to just add to that, you were asking like, what more needs to be done to innovate in the BTC L2 space. I mean, there's a long list, but I think one of the main things is that intermediary period between bridging that Bitcoin from L1 to L2, if that were as secure of a process as like, literal L1, like at least by 99.999%. And if that were proven for a while, I think that is the difference being made, from the layer two space being mostly, us degenerate DeFi Twitter degens, encompassing most of the space, and large institutions with big hodlers also jumping in. Because if you're managing like if you're managing $500 and you're trying to grow it, obviously you're willing to take more risk than someone with $500 million worth of Bitcoin, where like your priority is just not getting rugged and not losing your Bitcoin. And when you're at that level, you're not worried about trying to flip it 10x. You're more about trying to grow it, if even in the single digits annually, and just ensuring that you don't lose it and it doesn't get rugged.
I have to agree with you on that. Another thing I always see in this Bitcoin, I would say these Bitcoin communities is that's a really valid reason, but I feel like there's another concern here where it's yes, Bitcoin users, if they're rewarded properly, they can do all those actions. But I feel like most of all these Bitcoin or quote unquote native Bitcoin things that are happening right now is mostly done on the EVM side, right? So there's like wrap Bitcoin and such. So users will still have to bridge it or just convert it or use ETH or some other crypto asset. But I feel like the underlying asset that Bitcoin users really want access to, native Bitcoin, is just not there right now. And I feel like we're in the same predicament, right, with how Bitcoin L2 started with a couple years back and not being able to attract EVM users. And I feel like we're in the same position where it's, yeah, we can use native Bitcoin, but where is the liquidity of the EVM ecosystem? So I feel like if we answer that correctly, where it's how can we still access native Bitcoin, but still have the EVM users, but at the same time in liquidity, how are we able to access EVM like liquidity on chain versus most of the Bitcoin, native Bitcoin being off chain? How can we bring that here and improve the on chain experience for some of these Bitcoin whales? Who knows? These are just some of the questions that I feel like we just need to continue building towards. But this is just a random question, but I feel like with all these Bitcoin L2s, right? And with BitSmiley and Sovereign in particular, I just want to ask you, what are your thoughts on runes and inscriptions and BRC20s, SRC20s, and all these tokenized standards on the Bitcoin mainnet blockchain?
I'll go first. So I think they're making it fun to build on Bitcoin again, whereas a few years ago there wasn't like this fun playground where you can experiment with ordinals and tokens and meme coins on Bitcoin main chain. There wasn't as much of a fun environment as there is now. And even if like a lot of these projects may seem just kind of fickle and not really long-term focused, like creating a fun environment for building on Bitcoin, I think is really, really important in the beginning, so that like the devs just get familiar and the culture moves forward. And then eventually, like the more we experiment, the more useful things we'll have. That's kind of my short answer. So with with runes having come out, like Sovereign, we created a DEX where you can actually bridge your runes from Bitcoin main chain over to Bob, which is a Bitcoin L2, and freely trade there. And we're experimenting to see like if this improves the lives of people who want to trade runes in a more scalable environment. So it's just kind of helping us seeing like what works and what doesn't work.
Nice. BitSmiley, over to you as well. What are your thoughts on runes, BRC20s, inscriptions, etc.?
I personally actually think that like we're trying to bring back the attention to Bitcoin and actually like trying to make it more useful, I guess, like since every day like we are waking up to like the prices of Bitcoin, and then we should like maybe focus more on Bitcoin prices and actually putting them to more uses. And I feel like inscriptions and ruins are something great that like kind of making people to notice Bitcoin more than other ETH chain projects and things like that. And like what England just said, I'm sorry, like I didn't get your name, and then like I totally agree. It's way more fun and way more ways of playing, with Bitcoin. And also, like, I think this is just at like some really early stages. I believe that with the technology, like improvements and everything, we can like gradually build way more fun ways to play around Bitcoin and make it more useful than just, a native asset. And I feel like that way Bitcoin itself will become way more useful, and then users will like put more faith in it, and then we'll start to hold Bitcoin as like in a long-term assets as well. And also it's just way more ways of using it, and it won't just be sitting there. So that's my personal opinions on like inscriptions and ruins.
Yeah, I completely agree with Ingeladia here. I talked with a couple Bitcoin devs previously, and I feel like the response is generally quite the same, right? And we made this joke where the Bitcoin devs are so serious about Bitcoin mainnet, and most of them are, Bitcoin maxis, that there's no opportunity for them to build beyond what they already know. Um, so when runes and inscriptions and all that came out, I think they were all quite surprised. And a lot of them are like, you know what, we just have to innovate. If there's a market for it and people are demanding stuff like this on the Bitcoin mainnet, then sure. Um, but it just we would have never thought of it, right? So having someone like Casey Rodimer just be a thought leader and just really go all out and develop all these standards, well, good for him. Um, I guess moving on to the final question for today's AMA is really with Zeta Chain, what we can enable is native Bitcoin deposits, right? We really focus on the product UI, UX, more to speak. So when users are depositing native Bitcoin, it gets sent to a TSS address. So if a DApp is building on our Omnichain contracts, users can actually deposit their native Bitcoin by connecting Bitcoin wallet. And in one click product UI UX, they could swap it or perhaps borrow it, or perhaps mint a CDP stablecoin like Bitsmiley in just one click. So, from both of your experiences so far on Zeta Chain, what do you think the demand for this is? Is it something that your users are thinking of? How do you think it could benefit your overall product, etc.? Just would love to hear your overall feedback on what we're enabling.
It's my favorite thing about Zeta Chain, actually, because I often use Thor swap or permissively swapping between native assets. And I've been using that pretty reliably for years, and I think they've proven their use case for years. And I'm not sure what other dApps Thor Chain has, but Thor swap is like far and above the most important and the most the longest standing. So when I did my first couple of trades using Zeta Chain, being able to have that Thor swap experience without having to pay $150 to $200 in fees was amazing. It was like an order of magnitude below that, maybe two. And so just with my user hat on, I would love to build using this and have that native to native swap experience. And Sovereign, I think we're very good at like front end and UX. And I think that's a lot of why we're, I think I would attribute a lot of our success to that. That I think it's a very, very cool environment for this particular use case. And that's why we've been talking for the past month or two, right, Alex?
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like with Sovereign, it's quite interesting. Like right now, we're really trying to build out some of those core products on Zeta Chain. So being able to build out those one-click product UI UXs that also utilize the native Bitcoin in an EVM-like way, right? Where users can still deposit native Bitcoin, cross-chain swap it into an EVM environment, but without the users ever having to see a wrap token. So yeah, I like what we're building. Very excited to see what ends up being built. But yeah, very, very excited. So I'll give it over to you as well, BitSmiley.
Yeah, so like I feel like with the Zeta Chain's support for native Bitcoin deposits, like there will be like several positive impacts on BitUSD, especially like first it would like significantly increase the amount of BitUSD minted, I believe, and then also as we complete our development and for the rest of the year, we will deploy BitSmiley on more layer ones and layer twos. So therefore, Zeta Chain's technology will enhance BitSmiley's liquidity across various chains. Like you said, like we don't need to wrap Bitcoin anymore. So definitely, I feel like when I was personally using like Bitcoin layer twos, that's one of the things that's kind of like annoying, right? We have to wrap Bitcoin and then also bridge it so many times, and I get why people kind of criticize like Bitcoin layer twos. So I guess like Zeta Chain's technology can really help with that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much it. But if there are any more last minute thoughts or really last minute opinions from both of your sides, please feel free to chime in before I move over to community questions.
I think I'm good. I don't have any questions.
All right.
Well, I just want to say thanks for having us here. And, if you want to keep up to date with Sovereign, just follow Sovereign BTC. You can also see it as one of the speakers. And hit me up if you have any questions. Also, shout out to you, BitSmiley. It would be great to discuss a potential collaboration as well.
Awesome. Well, I guess there's a couple community questions I want to ask the both of you, and it just comes from Christmas. So I guess this question goes to both BitSmiley and also Sovereign as well. How does the protocol's design take into account the regulatory environment and potential legal challenges? And what are the use cases for a BTC native stablecoin? And how does it differ from fiat-backed stablecoins?
As for like the legal part, I personally like don't really like I'm not very familiar with that, like the challenges and things like that. I feel like it's been quite smooth. I haven't really heard any difficulties like regarding that aspect. And as for the second question, I think that the main reason that we wanted to make users to be able to like over collateralize their Bitcoin to mint BitUSD is that like a lot of the people they have Bitcoins, but then they cannot find any ways to use it, and they don't want to lose their Bitcoin assets, right? So they can deposit their Bitcoin at our protocol, and then at the moment they can mint BitUSD. They can do whatever trades with BitUSD on many of the Bitcoin layer twos. And then whenever they want to get back their Bitcoin, they're able to do that, so they don't lose their Bitcoins. In that way, I feel like that this is like way better than like fiat stable coins, because like once you trade with a fiat, you will not be able to get your Bitcoin back. If once the prices like goes up, you will probably regret, right? So that was like the main reason that we wanted to build BitSmiley, so that enable people to like hold their Bitcoin at the same time and use it in other scenarios. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
that additionally, I think the advantage with Bitcoin-backed stablecoins is that they are generally not censorable the way that like USDC and Tether are. So like Tether could be freezed from your wallet like at any time. There are not that many examples of that happening, but it does happen. You also couldn't go to a website and see all the assets that are backing the Tether in circulation. It's very, very murky, and you just kind of have to trust them. Whereas with like a Bitcoin-backed stablecoin protocol, you can you can like go to an Explorer and see like all of the collateral backing these stablecoins and see that, oh, okay, cool. For every Bitcoin backed stablecoin, there's $4 worth of Bitcoin backing it, which kind of keeps it, like economically secure. So just in short, it's more transparent and it's more censorship resistant. And I think less prone to depeggings like we've seen with USDC last year, where it went down to like 90 cents or something like that, right? Or in like the 80s. So, and also you don't have to like sell your Bitcoin. You can keep your Bitcoin, but also have dollars. So that's just magic right there. DeFi magic.
Well, well, I guess we're all sort of becoming Bitcoin maxis at this point. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much the end of it for community questions today. But just wanted to say to the community and to the speakers here, thank you for joining. Thank you, BitSmiley and Sovereign, for joining. I know it's quite early for the both of us, and perhaps, good afternoon to you, BitSmiley. But for all the listeners here, thank you so much for coming to our Ecosystem AMA. We're very excited to see all these integrations happen and all these lovely partners like BitSmiley and Sovereign come over to Zeta Chain and build all these native Bitcoin use cases with us. We're very excited to see what we can do and what we can introduce to the community as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks, Zeta Chain.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Great to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Thanks to the speakers. We'll share more updates on ecosystem in the next blog and updates on these partnerships. And we're going to run over to Discord now for the RFP review AMA, and we're going to have token table on that session. So thanks for joining here, and let's jump on Discord. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.